Dear Xrd, I beseech thee, I beg for just a crumb of buff. What must I ask of you to lay claim to any sense of value?
Sharp and sit the head down, and don't ask me for shit.
In any fighting game, you're inevitably going to have some characters that are strong and some characters that are weak. However, sometimes there's weak and then there's this. Welcome to the low world of bottom tiers, a place for masochists or a place for the strong to know what it feels like to be frightfully undermatched. So what makes a bottom tier? The modern bottom tier can still do bits, but typically a player that understands the matchup can abuse large blind spots in the character's kit to make it so that they're more frequently in a position where the bottom tier can't abuse their strengths. If you're playing a game made after 2015, chances are you're playing a game without a solid bottom tier, but instead varying degrees of not as good tier. But true bottom tiers are frightfully lacking and almost incapable of getting any work done. In the current day, most games are designed to be patched, and so any character that isn't playable at one point will eventually be at least competent. Just look at Street Fighter V. The bottom tiers changed so much because of patching that it's like rolling a dice between who's arse this season. So much so that characters with really good fundamentals and tools to deal with almost every situation can still be considered unplayable, garbage, dumpster fires of characters. Which is the reason that most of the time when people talk about fighting game characters in the current day, they say just pick who you like, because until you reach a certain level of play, tier lists mean nothing to you. The statement pick a top tier doesn't hold as much weight and relevance to as many people anymore because the games are in a position where almost every character in the cast can at least hold their own a decent amount of the time, even if there are matchups that make you want to cry. That said, they did do my boy Krillin dirty for like a year and a half, so I don't know. But things start to go really dirty when you start to go back in time. You don't even have to go that far back. Look at Hugo in Ultra 4. This man's so big he could be mistaken for a skyscraper. He's useless without meter, and he's got the mobility of a cardboard box. Why can I shoot a fireball and it covers like 3 options? What the fuck? Hugo suffers from a laser-focused character type that doesn't have much flexibility. He's intentionally designed to be a slow tank that has to work hard to get in, and doesn't really do much of anything until that point. The strategies that characters of this type can employ aren't very diverse, and because of that, if they're put in a game with systems that don't allow them to quickly gain some ground, they start to fumble. But at least Hugo can do things. He's got a damage output that makes it so that when he does find his opening once in a blue moon, he can lay damage down, and so the appeal comes in working hard to get in, but being rewarded very hard once you are in. Thankfully, the people who like characters with this kind of laser-focused character design aren't expecting them to be top tier, though they're probably so focused on enjoying the character that they probably don't really know what the tier list is. This kind of bottom tier is flawed, but I wouldn't say is flawed in a bad way, since the characters that they embody should inherently struggle since they're focused around specific ways of thinking and appealing to particular groups of players. Typically this ends up being the grapplers, which, sorry fellas, but you deserve it, I'm not trying to deal with this shit. But low tiers can go lower, and I don't mean the same way that like a joke character can, like the cats in Melty. I mean real, meant to be played characters. Lower than Hugo, lower than Gigas. Oh, they can go real low. At least they're not this. No, move the camera over to the left a little. Oh god! Ladies and gentlemen, mostly gentlemen, I've brought you here today to discuss the most functional low tier you've ever seen. No, not him, actually. Oddly enough, he's really good. You know, in most games, the very bottom tier is due to relativistic factors. Yeah, this character might suck, but it's not because they're inherently awful, it's because they're surrounded by characters that can do what they do, but more consistently, with a higher degree of safety. Just get rewarded for it better, you know, stuff like that. And there's ways that you can play that bring out some of the strengths of those characters. Maybe they've got some good matchups here and there without real reason. There's some room for debate about who the worst character could be, like some Marvel 3 tier lists debate that the Darkstalkers girl that I can't remember the name of isn't the worst. They're wrong, but there is some debate. And then in team games like KOF, you might have a dog shit character, but you can sandwich them between 2 good characters and pretend you're playing a 2v3 game and make them useful as a punching bag. Or someone to kind of figure out player tendencies without really sacrificing that much, since you know that they're gonna die anyway. Like, Chin might be shit here, but at least you can use them to figure out what your opponent can and can't respond to, even if he does move around like a sloth that's got a bit too friendly with a high-speed truck. Also, he's got the best sound effect in the game, I'm just saying. But this guy is so pitiful that there's almost no question that he's the worst, and no, I won't take Hugo as a rebuttal. If you've never played 3S, you probably know him for this for some fucking reason, but you'd be surprised at just how shockingly non-functional this character is. He can't poke, he can't do set play, he can't zone, he can't play neutral. Trying to play 12 is like trying to survive jumping off a 30-story building with no parachute. Alright, well, I guess that doesn't help my point. You know, most of the time when we're talking about broken characters, you're thinking about characters like Pet Shop that just take control away from your opponent, or like every character in HNK where they get progressively worse the less broken they are. But 12, he's broken like you might as well have just given your opponent your stick and said, fuck it, you do you. But maybe he's got some like hidden qualities. Yeah, sure, he can't cancel any of his good normals into his specials, and he doesn't have any meaningful combo routes at all. Seriously, this is like max damage without meter. You know what? I can't do this. Let's break down just how much of a walking car crash this character really is. Be warned, I'm about to get very angry over this blob. Hey, you ever wanted to fire a projectile at full screen? Don't. This is happening because when you hit your opponent, you're so minus that you're still recovering from the move for a very significant amount of time. So even if you don't get punished, your opponent will start winning neutral from there. Alright, no meaningful play at full screen. That's fine. Let's look at his mid-screen options. Don't. Okay, to be fair, mid-screen he does actually have one really good button in standing medium punch, since it controls a decent amount of the screen as well as recovering fast, allowing you to gain a decent amount of meter and also make it tricky for them to approach. The issue from this point is that he has nothing else to threaten with after the medium punch. Like if we compare this to a similar move like Ken's crouching medium kick, it starts to box them out kind of like 12's and puts most characters back at a distance where Ken can respond to every situation. If you threaten with this move enough, you'll start to gain a significant amount of meter, and then you can start making this move really deadly by buffering in a super behind it. So if someone walks into you, they're going to take massive damage, so this move has immediate and long-term reward. The immediate being pushing your opponent back, being able to set up for a really strong anti-air, going for a jump in yourself, or resetting again for another crouching medium kick. The long-term being meter building and making these exact same situations more dangerous in the future. 12's puts you back in neutral where you're losing. Okay, it does set up the same distance that we talked about, but there's no new dangers behind any of these cycles since the damage is so low and normally puts you back at more risk than your opponent. If you jump in on 12, yeah, he does have an okay anti-air, but without any damage behind any of these moves and no mix-ups immediately to follow or hard knockdowns unless you're using his most committal anti-air to start set play, it makes it really hard to consider any of these real dominant moves since the risk reward is always in your opponent's favor. And then you get to this range and it's just, oh, what the fuck? This is my best close range combo. No knockdown, no damage, and unless you're so close to the opponent that you're basically conjoined, you come out -2, so you know what that means. Just an admittedly really fast leg and we're done, which is great as a get off me move, but it puts you back in a situation where you're immediately losing because your next hit will either be insubstantial or puts 12 at disadvantage. What's frustrating is that this character on paper could have been good. If he had more ways to get his opponent into a hard knockdown, say with like EX Squidward hands, he could have at least been an underwhelming but still functional rushdown character since his little air dash does give him at least interesting mix-up potential. But this lack of a solid goal to work towards builds into a game plan that feels really vague, like do I play responsively poorly on this character or do I just lose every engagement aggressively, which isn't how characters that have a specific appeal should be made. Like Carmine might have issues when it comes to this kind of distance since he doesn't really have any panic moves, but he's clearly defined by the goal of set play and lockdown, so these kinds of issues are justified, since these problems are the points that are the weakness to his goals. Yin and yang and all that bullshit, but what goals can 12 work towards? Because in reality, none of what you achieve will help you that much. From what I can tell, they wanted 12 to be a mix-up focused, low damage rushdown character, which I think is implied by the air dash and the invisibility taunt. Oh yeah, he can go invisible. Honestly, it's not even that good since you can never set it up, and if you do want to use it, you have to sacrifice Oki for it. It might be the case that other characters in games also have this low tier because of the same lack of reward, but at least they have clear goals and tools to make it so that once they're finally in a position, they can make it so that they can do their job, which is implied by their tools. Okay, yeah, you've got a good grab. In fact, it's really good. It gives knockdown and the back throw sends them so far away that you at least gain positional advantage, and in the corner you can get a really dirty mix-up with Oki. However, even this isn't that good, since if your mix-up after isn't a grab, you're going to put yourself back at disadvantage. It's like trying to make money at the casino by flipping a coin, but heads you double your money and tails you have to sell a limb. I'm convinced that people that play this character are sexually attracted to the idea of being a bottom bitch, except me, because this character always makes you feel like you're losing right up until you KO, and then you're struggling all the way through neutral and you finally get super and you just It never fucking connects! This character it's just booty bungus. While other bottom tiers are bad because of their relative inadequacy, this character is just a dumpster baby because he hardly functions. You know this character's best super? It's the super where he turns into someone fucking else. That's not a joke. That's not a shitty attempt at getting a laugh. That's a real thing. This character has problems, which turns this character into a joke, really, and not in the same way that Dr. B or Dan are designed to intentionally be bad. Now you're in a mirror match, but you're deciding to mirror match them with a worse version of themselves, since you're only in the mirror after a full bar of meter and you've got the HP of a housefly without wings. And so you have to ask the question, why pick this character at all? Because I can think of plenty of reasons to not play him, like how every other character can do the same thing as him, but better. Let's take his best option and compare it to another character, like only one step up the tier list. Let's compare it to Necro. If you like the way that his standing medium punch works, you'll probably find much more success with Necro. Necro's standing medium punch is a tad faster, but covers generally the same space, but has a massive benefit that 12's doesn't. It can actually do some fucking damage, because even though it does less actual damage, it gives you better frame advantage, but can also be swapped out for back medium punch on command, but 12's requires a proximity input, which is an even faster method of gaining meter, and when this move connects, it can be special cancelled into, which allows you to get knocked down, and also you can EX it, which makes it so that you get extra damage out of it, and if you don't EX into it, you can special cancel into the medium punch version, which gives you a super cancel at the end. Why can 12 not do any of this? And so I ask again, why pick this character at all? Well, I mean, look at him, isn't he adorable? He's like the fighting game equivalent of a pug, a horrid abomination of all that's wrong with the world, but you can't just help, he's just so cute. There's a certain charm to his non-functionality. Yeah, I could pick up literally anyone else in the game, and in tournament, you're fucking crazy if you're thinking I'm picking this piece of shit. But that difficulty of a character that is consistently worse than your opponents in every way is engaging if you want a serious challenge, and makes any victory, even those little achievements that aren't really even victories, feel much more satisfying. The best way that I can think of it for those of you who might not get it is it's the same feeling that you get after playing Dark Souls. You take on these mammoth creatures and part of the satisfaction comes from how outmatched you feel and that bizarre relief/power trip that comes after victory. And would he really have that charm if he was good? Like, would people enjoy Anakaris if he was top tier? Probably not. They'd probably think he's really annoying and weird, and same goes for 12. This character sucks, and unlike Gigas at the start of this video, it's 12's destiny to be Third Strike's beloved bottom tier, resigned to a world of failure, never to see the light of success. To me, 12 is the example of what separates low to bottom tier. Low tiers are characters that have severe flaws but are also able to push their strengths. Generally, they are rewarded, but they aren't rewarded well enough to the rest of the cast to justify picking them or considering them as much of a threat as other characters. Bottom tiers are characters that see almost no return for their effort, lack tools to create rewarding situations, and are directionless in game plan because of those two previously mentioned issues. So in summary, just pick a top tier. Oh wow, that number fills me with anxiety.